Now, the conventional narrative on this, really, if you sort of were to read just one quick newspaper article, the conventional narrative really starts around the 1980s with the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, and then the jihad that was funded partly by the Saudis, partly by the US, working with the Pakistanis. But I'm going to take you back a little bit farther, and I would argue that even though the anti-Soviet jihad was extremely important, and it's a seminal moment if we want to discuss the radicalization of Islam in South Asia, I actually think the seeds of this in some ways were planted long before that. And again, I'm just to be very clear of what I'm talking about. I'm talking here about radical Islam. I'm not talking about Islam as a faith. I don't have any particular expertise in matters of faith or theology. I'm not someone who is out to, discuss verses in the Quran and surahs and hadiths and things like that. It's beyond my expertise, and I'm very skeptical of people who use that line of argument. I'm interested in talking about politics, or a way of looking at politics. And what I call radical Islam, if I were to give you the most simple definition, is the contemporary drive to impose ideas found in Islamic law on every aspect of 21st century state and society. So everything from how women will dress, to how you will bank, to what kind of government you can elect or not elect. It's a comprehensive, overarching view. And what's really driving radical Islamist ideologues, who are essentially 20th century figures, is the idea that you can create a kind of perfect system. You can bring God's laws to earth. And in doing that, they will be sort of fulfilling something that is larger. But that is it's a minority view within the faith. It's certainly not the majority view by any stretch of the imagination. And I don't think radical Islam should ever be conflated with Islam, the religion, as it is practiced by more than 1 billion people. This is a minority view. The three seminal figures of radical Islam are the Egyptian Sayyid Qutb, the Iranian Ayatollah Khomeini, who used a sort of Shia version of it, and someone who was born in undivided India but spent much of his life then in Pakistan, Abul Ala Maududi, who founded an organization known as the Jamaat-e-Islami. So these are the three figures. So now that I've clarified what I mean by radical Islam, I want to sort of talk about the kind of the progress of these ideas, or the shrinking of it, the shrinking space for tolerance and the rise of intolerance fueled by these ideas in Pakistan over the years since 1947. And when I look at this, I say that a lot of it, to my mind, goes back to the founding principle of the state. Now, the state of Pakistan, as those of you who are familiar with history know, was not founded as a radical Islamist state. The founding ideology of the Muslim League or Muhammad Ali Jinnah was not meant to be a state that discriminated against women or discriminated overtly against religious minorities. It was meant to be, in Jinnah's original vision, a homeland for Indian Muslims. Jinnah believed, rightly or wrongly, I believe wrongly, he believed rightly obviously, that the Muslims of India needed a country of their own where they would not be a minority, where they would be in the majority. And that was really the impetus behind the creation of Pakistan. But that said, this is a fairly unique thing, because it was a state that was created in the name of faith. So even though it wasn't created in the name of implementing every single rigorous detail of an extremist interpretation of the faith, which is what the Islamists would want, it was created sort of loosely. The idea of Pakistan was, it means land of the pure. That's what it literally means. And the purity that is being referred to in land of the pure is not that everybody has a bath twice a day. It's that it's the purity of faith. So it's a sort of special idea. And what you see from the very start, if you go back and look at Pakistani history, you see many cues. So for example, the capital city of Pakistan is Islamabad. It's named again for the faith. The flag has a sort of, it's not coincidental, the dominant color is the color of the faith. And from the very beginning, Pakistan attracted a kind of messianic international group of people who would, under normal circumstances, not have anything to do with Pakistan, but came there because they saw this as this interesting new project. So I'll give you just a few examples of people who are fairly known, well known in Islamist literature, but not very well known to a general public. So, like for example, the one of the first Pakistani ambassadors to the United Nations was a Quranic scholar named Muhammad Asad. He was a very fascinating figure because he was actually born as an Austrian Jew. His name was Leopold Weiss, and he converted then to Islam and became a very respected scholar. And when this new state was founded, he sort of felt passionately drawn to it because here was a state that was sort of founded on the basis not of a faith but on the basis of followers of a faith. And he became one of the early ambassadors to the UN. Said Ramadan, who was an Egyptian and who was the son-in-law of the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood, Hassan al-Banna, he moved to Pakistan in the 1950s and made it a second home. And he would sort of shuttle back and forth, and he would work very, very closely with Maududi, who was the founder of the Jamaat-e-Islami. But the most central figure, of course, is Maududi himself. And from the start, Maududi had a kind of battle with Jinnah. It's one of the most interesting kind of elements of Indian history, actually, even before the creation of Pakistan, which is that Maududi did not want partition, and Jinnah did. And you could not think of two more contrasting figures if you were to sort of think of the two most important, charismatic, powerful thinkers of Islam in the 20th century of the Indian subcontinent. It's Jinnah and Maududi. And you could not find two people who are more different. So you have Jinnah on the one hand, who was a British educated lawyer. He would drink, he would eat pork, he was extremely westernized, completely secular in his personal life. He had friends from every faith. Did not sort of, was as far as you could sort of, as far as you could imagine from someone who would sort of end up championing this religious state. It was him. And then there was Maududi, who came from a very long line of scholars and was extremely learned in religious matters, and essentially founded this ideology behind the Jamaat-e-Islami, where his argument was that his argument is broken down into two phases. In the first phase, when Jinnah wanted partition, and Jinnah said that we want two different countries because Hindus and Muslims cannot live together, so-called two-nation theory, Maududi's response was, well, actually, why do we need two countries when this whole thing is ours? That was his first part. But then afterwards, he decided to move to Pakistan after partition, and over there, sort of this clash of ideas begins to take shape very early on in Pakistan's history. And what Maududi asked is a question which I think is a question that still has not been answered. It's a question that sort of goes through Pakistani history for the past 64 years, has still not been answered, but it's the single most important question. And the question is this: